My name is Valerie and I'm from California. My story is about when I was stabbed in my heart and lung and died 3 times. Back in 2016, I was drinking at a park, intoxicated. I was around the wrong people. And when I had got stabbed, I had just left my house from working. I work with my mother. And at that time, I wasn't supposed to be drinking. I was supposed to be working from home, but I ended up drinking and going back to the park. A group of us were drinking at the park. We were sitting at a bench and my mom called me and she had told me, hey, come show me the work you've done so I could pay you. I took another shot, and when I took another shot, that was the last shot. So the group of friends, they went to the store together down the street, and I had left. When I came back home, my mom's like, hey, I could smell the in your mouth. What are you doing? When you don't listen, bad things will happen to you. So I was like, okay, mom, I'll be back. So I went back to the park, even though she's telling me don't go. And when I went, there was nobody there but a male, African-American male in a wheelchair, and then somebody else on the other side of the bench we were sitting at, facing a brick wall. And when he was facing this brick wall, I had asked, like, hey, where'd everybody go? And he had turned around like with a mad face. I looked at him and I see the male in the wheelchair. He reached the knife going towards me, which ended up stabbing my heart, my left ventricle heart, and my lung, punctured my lung. And as I stood there, I like jerked back. That's how hard it was. And I stood there and I was like, whoa, like I just got stabbed. And right away I could feel like warm in my body. I could feel hot in my body. And I immediately just like processed it and I walked all the way back home. This was again about 8 houses down from my house. But when I walked back, I could just feel like warm, like kind of pouring into my body. Warm, which was blood because I was bleeding internally. So I yelled my mom's name out. It's like, Mom, I got stabbed. And at this time, I thought it was just my left breast. My mom and my oldest brother, they ran to the park and left me on the front lawn. As I was standing there holding myself, I remember myself feeling like cold. I was getting cold and I was getting like numb in my feet. And I began to just ask the Lord, because at this time I was backsliding from God. I turned my whole life away from God, and I began to ask God to forgive me of my sin, because I knew I backslidden and I was on my way to, the pit of hell. At this time, I'm asking the Lord, God, forgive me of my sins, please, like forgive me. And as I'm saying that, I begin to kind of like fade away. And I don't remember this, but I was told I walked back to the park, mind you, with a bleeding internally, punctured heart, punctured lung in my left ventricle main artery. And when I walked back to the park, I ended up collapsing on a big rock. And my mom and my brother were there because they were, attacking the guy, not physically because he was in a wheelchair, but just, like, what did you do? Da da da. So my mom ends up seeing me. She runs to the rock, and I am at this point gray. I already did the restroom on myself, number 1 and 2. Just gray, dead, pronounced dead, right? My mom works in the medical field, so thank the Lord she was able to give me the oxygen that I needed. And the ambulance came and they tried to work on me, but I kept going. I died. That was the first time I had died. That pronounced me dead. And then they took me in the ambulance and they tried getting me there again, and nothing. Finally, I was at St. Francis Hospital, and they did open heart surgery on me, ended up doing everything they could do on me, but nothing was working but a simple massage to my heart. And at this point, they finally got me to come back. They ended up doing all this kinds of stuff on me. I was out of the emergency surgery ICU. Within a couple hours, I woke up and I was taking everything off of me, and thank the Lord. Doctor said that I was supposed to be brain dead, vegetable, and I wouldn't make it. But thank the Lord, God, he did a miracle. He turned it around for his glory. So I'm just here, to say that literally I was dead. Everything that went on through that hospital, I was there for 15 days. Everything was great. I had an enlarged heart. I had to work to get my lung back up. It was crazy, but God allowed me to live, to share the story with you guys that there's crazy people out there that are to hurt you. And I didn't do anything to the man. The man was just there. And guys, again, I did see the knife coming to me, but I was stuck. And I was like, whoa. But all I could remember is that big like tug And that's what made me obviously realize too when I seen the knife, like, whoa, I got stabbed. This park was a park for kids, actually. I used to take my little brothers there often. And I would be at this park all the time. But this particular day on a Thursday, around 4, almost 5, it happened out of nowhere. I was 18, about to turn 19, and they were all our age. We were just drinking, smoking, and we were just being young. And they had left to go get, and it was just a normal day. I mean, we would do this all the time. They were just neighbors. I lived there about 4-5 years, so they were pretty, I knew them. They were called friends. This day was kind of weird because nobody ever all goes to go get a bottle at the store. Everybody just stays and chills. But this day, everybody went, about 5 or 6 people, including my sister. She went with them, and I left to the house by myself. So the reason why I didn't go join them is because my mom called me. And I worked from home just like I do now, but she asked, like, hey, what did you do? Because she paid me. She paid me. That was my boss. And so as she said, like, hey, get home. I want to see the work you did so I could pay you. That's when I went home, and everybody left to go get another bottle. I had left the park to go check in with my mother to show her the work I did. And then I had came back to the park. I went up to the table and no one was still there. It were taking a long time to get there. And that's when I walked up to the table by myself, and there was the 2 males there. I kind of was like, where's everybody at still? But just walking up, it did feel weird. It felt like what's going on type of thing, because the guy that we were drinking with was facing a brick wall, and then the male, which was in the wheelchair, was facing his side but on the other side of the bench. It was kind of weird, but from me being intoxicated, I didn't realize how close I was to the man. But then again, he was kind of big, so I wasn't that close, because he reached me. As I see him pull the knife out, I'm looking at him doing it, but I don't think he's gonna do anything with it. He actually begins to shave his head with it, and he's shaving his head with it, and he puts it down, and it's not a big knife. It's not like a butcher knife. No, it was like one of those knives like that, and it had a green handle to it, but it was a very sharp knife. And I remember him put it down. When I had looked at the guy next, on the other side of the bench, I could see from my corner of his eye that he literally went like this. He was sitting on the side of me this way, and so he hit my left side. He used his left arm, right? So I was just like, whoa. So I see the knife coming, I see everything, but I get stuck and I just think it didn't hurt like a cut. It just felt more like push, and it was like immediately I felt warm. Obviously that was my blood from my lung and heart. So thankfully I was able to see and remember when that happened. As I'm turning around to walk back to the park, I could see the male that we were drinking with. He looked at it happen, and he jumped over the table and he started hitting the guy. And I believe he got stabbed as well. But I don't remember what happened after that. But all I can remember is it's just me in the narrow sidewalk. I'm walking and I'm just holding myself. When I was walking, I just looked at my hand like this, and there was a little bit of blood. So that's why I feel like my mom left and went, because, she didn't really think I was bleeding. But when I woke up from the hospital, when I was up, my hands were covered in blood. So I wasn't really focused, I don't think, on how much I was bleeding, just to get to my mom for help. So the point where it got scary, I would say, is when I was alone. I was alone because I started feeling myself go. A lot of people ask, how does it feel to die? Well, I could testify to that, because I can say that first my body was cold, and then my face was cold and numb. It got numb and cold, and I could just I didn't see myself coming in and out. But as I was praying that prayer for forgiveness, all I could remember is just praying that last sentence, and I don't remember after that. I was just praying, Lord, forgive me for my sins. I don't want to go to hell. Please forgive me of my sins, because I had turned my back away from God. So I was pronounced dead 3 times. No pulse, no air, nothing. And the first time I used the bathroom on myself, I was gray, blue. My family lived all around us, so they all ran to the park, and I just feel like I was in the middle of it. And they were all yelling and praying for the Lord to save me. And I remember my mother, she was screaming on the top of her lungs, she says, and she was asking the Lord to please save me. Please save me. Don't let my daughter die. And out of anger and trying to be patient and help me. Well, the guy's still at the park, well, we're still there. It was a lot of emotions. She actually has a lot of PTSD from it just because I went through it, but she's the one that's seen it, and just her describing the way I was gray, I was just dead. No lights. I used the bathroom by myself. And then, just the screaming, and it's just it torments her all the time. But she's learned to forgive and to push forward, and to say, at least my daughter's here. I'm grateful. I'm healthy. And, my mom, the progress to me getting better was just a beautiful thing to see, because there was not one bad thing that happened. It was just recovery beautifully, So doctors said that I was stabbed in my left ventricle, which is my main artery to my heart, which pumps, I believe, the blood, and I was punctured in my left lung. And I don't know if you guys know, but you cannot live if you've been stabbed in your heart and your main artery as well. They actually were able to it's all the Lord, right? Because they don't even know. And the doctor's report, they actually put that is a miracle, because there's no way I should be here. When I go back to the house, we had a townhouse back then. So I yelled my mom's name. She says that I yelled her name and I actually ran through the front door. I don't remember that part, but I didn't go all the way in the house, but I ended up coming back out. But when they left, I mean by bleeding out is that I can feel my body warm inside. So that's all blood, and I'm bleeding inside but bleeding out, you know what I'm saying? And as I yelled my mom's name, I can only remember her and my brother saying, "Where is he at?" And they left and they went to go get him. So the ambulance didn't get there. When I'm in the front lawn, I'm just by myself. I ended up walking back to the park and I ended up collapsing, dying on a rock. That's when the ambulance had came. First police came, and I'm dead. I'm pronounced dead. Back away. She's dead. That's it. She's dead. And instead of they putting, a cover over me and putting tape, they caught the ambulance still was able to work on me. He took me, and I was able to come back to life through their help and through God's help. So recovery, I was able to leave the hospital 15 days after. Recovery went really good until I got home. Mind you, I still live by the park where I was stabbed. The guy is still out. So everybody at that park was still like wandering around. The last time they seen and knew that I was dead, right? So everybody was just like, I feel like everybody was just walking around trying to figure out what happened. So I would see that outside of my window, and I would lay with my mom because I was so afraid. Once I got home, anxiety hit me bad. I was suffering with my heart rate going to like 150, which it wasn't supposed to, because it was, recovering and being healed. I was afraid to be home. Physically, I was good, but mentally, it was a big journey for me. So I was very afraid to go alone anywhere. I was afraid to go to the restaurant. I would look at every exit door. It was just a lot of PTSD. Physically, it was recovery was wow. I was recovered, but mentally, it was just like a big thing to get over. So the guy was actually released from jail because they stated that he had mental illness. So again, I don't know what happened, whatever, but I just want to put it out there before I get into that. I did forgive the guy. I forgive him, and I hope he gets healing himself because he is in a wheelchair. I just hope the Lord works on him. So I never seen him after 2016, August 4th. I didn't push charges against him because they said that if I pushed charges against him, I would have to go to jail as well. For what reason, I have no idea. I honestly don't know. I just feel like I don't know what happened with that. During the scene where my mother ran at that park to go get him, he actually tried to get away and he got stuck in mud. And the police got him. They ended up taking him to jail that same day. I'm not sure if it was a week or two after, but he was released. What happened to me, it changed my life so much because first, I am more cautious than ever, and especially because I have a 4-year-old daughter. I'm very, very protective over her. I am still, I don't want to say fearful, but I'm still afraid to go certain places without a family member. just because I have a daughter. But if it's by myself, I'm okay. There is things that trigger me, like before, like when people were getting shot at malls and stuff, that still triggers me because I'm afraid, like, what if that happens? So yeah, I still deal with things. I still, deal with PTSD, and I still know that there's things that can still happen. But I try not to let that bother me. But I do want to see is that I do still have traumatizing things that I am, cautious about. Movies is the main thing that I'm afraid to go to still, is because it's dark and there's people behind me. Usually I try to sit all the way up there where I can look at everybody. Stuff like that. I still very much do. I'm myself and I'm different from a lot of other people, but therapy didn't help me. It just kept repeating. I kept repeating and replaying the things, which it wasn't letting me heal because I was trying to think otherwise, and I just kept having anxiety attacks because I was talking about it. So the only thing that I would say that would help is God. God can remove every fear, every PTSD, every anxiety, because he's the only way, anxiety and all that isn't a sickness. It's not your mental. It's just attacks, that come from the devil, honestly. So God's the only healer that can take all that away. That's what he did for me. There was a time where my heart rate, just probably like 4 months ago, my heart rate was racing so fast. And my mother was asleep at this time, and everybody was asleep. And I got an attack out of nowhere. And I got up and I was like I couldn't breathe right. I had to wet my face, fan myself, and I had to keep telling myself, like, you're okay. Nothing was working until I prayed, and I prayed, Lord God, please remove this from me in the name of Jesus. And I just kept worshiping, singing my worship, and it calmed down and it went away. So I would still pray and ask God to remove it, because if not, it's gonna keep going harder and harder. It's like an attack. You're having a warfare in your mind. Last October, I was fearful, very fearful of my daughter getting hurt or, being in any type of weird things. I was just very afraid, and I was like, Lord, it would torment me. Like, I'm afraid. I don't want my daughter to go through what I went through. Like, I'm just afraid. I was just so fearful to even have anybody around my daughter or leave her anywhere, right? But I got a word from God, and he said my testimony wouldn't be hers, so she's covered. So after that, I kind of just allowed her to, I didn't hostage her in. I was just very protective, and I didn't really like her being around a lot of other people, because I was afraid. But I feel like now I let that guard down, and I just allow her to, be a kid. You're trying to find the strength and the authority to get over PTSD, anxiety, trauma from childhood, even from now, whoever's going through something now. I just ask that you guys just give it to the Lord. Pray to him, because he's the only one that can remove it. Honestly, I've tried therapy. I've tried everything. They wanted to put me on and I denied it. I took it and I dealt with it, because you can overcome it. You don't have to be on any of that. So I just say right now that whoever is dealing with that, try to get your help, overcome, mental illness from your past or whatever you went through. Just pray to God, and God will remove it. He truly will. And I'm testifying to that now. He will, because he did it for me. Nobody is ever alone in what you're going through, because someone else dealt with it. For my story, I'm not sure if anybody else ever dealt with that, but if there's anybody that came to death as close as I was in, or is trying to find a way out in a situation of domestic violence, if you're being molested, if you're being anything, if you have that family support, I truly believe you should really lean on them and allow them to love on you and pour into you. And again, I pray and I just ask that you guys will take it up with the Lord, because he will definitely restore you guys. I thought I was dying. I thought I was not going to come back. That's why I said that prayer, because I knew there's eternal somewhere. There's either eternal heaven or hell, right? So I was praying, Lord, forgive me. I don't want to go to hell. I didn't say, Lord, save me. I said, save me, but not to be here. I figured I was going to die, felt that I was dying, and I didn't know I was going to come back and be here. During that time of me dying, I honestly, felt like I wasn't ready. God didn't allow me to go because I was like asleep. I felt like I was just sleeping. I didn't dream. I didn't do anything, but I remember it being dark, like just empty dark.